Hang in
Dude,
there. It is.
that's Smylie Kaufman for 61. Wow.
I'm Smylie Kaufman, and this is The Smylie Show.
Welcome back to another episode of The Smylie Show. It is midweek now, moving away from the holiday, moving back into real life, gearing up for the third major of the year, the U.S. Open at Oakmont. And this week we have, or today we have a really interesting conversation that you had with Brad Faxon, Smylie. So we're excited to get to that. Although first, I have to tie up some loose ends from my vacation weekend. The second Eagle Point voyage, lot better than the first one. Made about 40 feet of putts on 16 and 17 to go birdie there.
There you go.
So that was a nice kind of 17.
Which holes you said?
16, 17. Yeah.
All right, so help me out here. 16, is that the one with like a little water left, kind of dog left?
That is 17,
That's
which is my
17.
favorite hole in the course. The one that kind of goes slightly uphill with the meandering creek or along the left-hand
Is
side.
16 like the par 3?
No, 16 is sort of like a downhill par 4. That
Like
kind of
very,
narrows
very
some
narrow?
trees.
Like
Yes.
in a very narrow green?
Yes.
Like, but a big narrow green.
With yeah, exactly. Like kind of like shaped kind of left to right.
Yeah.
Like diagonally with some fairway bunkers.
That
on
was
that.
it was an easy hole if you hit the fairway.
Yes.
But if you didn't, that's when it got difficult.
The driver is driving right now. We were in a good
Yeah.
spot, so smash that one down there and hit
Good
a
for
little.
you. I'm
It was-
so happy for anybody that's driving the golf ball good. So happy for you.
I sense there's a little bit of extra in that statement there. There's something buried underneath that.
Yeah, I
there.
suck. I told Fran last night, it's like, Fran, I stink right now. I cannot hit the golf ball straight.
Well, I'd say stay tuned, right? Because we could see a Cleveland Highbore or a Cleveland Classic back in the bag soon.
I tell you what, I might just start playing with a hockey stick at this point.
Whatever gets you off the tee. It's nice, but I'll tell you what, Smylie, the shanks are back. The shanks are back on the menu. I shanked a bump and run. I don't know how I did it. I actually just had to laugh out loud. So it's one of those things. It's very cyclical in golf. It's like
I've never done that.
it was actually. I think what happened was I think I kind of stubbed it and it pulled the toe open. And what happened is I kind of like bladed it off the edge of the toe. Like it was not a hosel shot, but it went 45 degrees to the right. I just started laughing. I was just like, I don't. Good thing I'm driving it good. I have something to take away that's good there. But got it around pretty good there. Just love that piece of property. We have some fans out there, some people who are watching and listening to the show. So we thank the whole crew out there at Eagle Point for supporting the Smylie Show.
Wait, what? Say it again?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
We had multiple caddies in our group. Guys, shout out to John and EC out at Eagle Point, who saw the head cover that I had. I had my little Smylie Show head cover on, and they said we went back and watched the episode, your last episode. Everyone in the I guess the caddy room or whoever was, they were all watching it and listening to what we were saying about the course. They loved it. So big fans of the show there. And then I had a group playing behind me.
Are they also still looking for my plaque?
Well, let's just say I've started to inquire there. I'm saying there's not a plaque in there yet. What can we do to get a plaque made for you? I think the goal is to get you back to Eagle Point, present you with a plaque, and then see if you can
plant a tree.
Yeah.
The top 5 guys on the leaderboard get a tree at Eagle Point.
Just pick the
Listen,
most.
I didn't have many top 5, so I'm milking this.
I love it.
To the end.
I love it, and they all loved it out there too. I think we find the most difficult driving hole out there, and we plant a tree like 40 yards right of the fairway, and then just put the leaderboard from that Wells Fargo Championship right at the base of the tree with your name highlighted.
Oh God, I drove it like a madman that week. It was so pure. God, was I hitting it good.
I'm stunned. I mean, I'm not stunned. You're phenomenal at the game of golf, but that is one of the harder golf courses I play. So you just must have been lighting it up that week. It's fantastic. Just driving it good. And
this may surprise you, but I wish you could have played with me when I was like really good. You would have been like, oh, okay. There's signs of it every now and then, but man, just keep dreaming, right?
Well, I think we get you back there. I think it's like one of those things.
Thank you. I need that.
I think we get you back there. I think we conjure the memories, the good feelings at Eagle Point.
Sure,
But
sure.
I'm just glad people are fans of the show out there. So
Yeah, thank you.
good times out there. Appreciate all y'all for watching and listening. And we are excited that you're here today to hear this conversation that Smylie had with Brad Faxon, because it is a very good one. And to do that, we are going to get some help from our friends at Ahead. We're talking, it is a trust-based relationship, of course, between Smylie Kaufman and Brad Faxon. These two guys are on the broadcast together at NBC, Golf Channel, bringing all sorts of insight. Brad, of course, one of the greatest putters in the history of the game. So Ahead builds and manages digital platforms that power the most successful organizations in the world. Their consultative approach, unmatched engineering, and innovative solutions combine to accelerate the impact of technology in every client they serve. Ahead's long-standing relationships are built on outcomes and experience with both their clients and technology partners. You can learn more at ahead.com. And Smylie, I think the relationship, the trust-based relationship, to use Ahead's phrasing, that I'm most interested in you unpacking today with Brad is his with Rory McIlroy, especially now that Rory's completed the career Grand Slam. Any sort of tee-up you want to provide there for people to listen to what you're going to talk about with Brad?
I think it's pretty obvious that with Brad's, just the way he coaches, I think it's done very from a player's standpoint, and I really love how he approaches the game, when he was playing or coaching. I think he does it in a way that I really appreciate. You know, so many coaches just try to be right about everything and just want to be the smartest guy in the room. I think Brad's a coach that wants to know what the player, likes and what they don't like, and how they like to be coached. And I think Brad does that to an elite level, and he's helped many players, and Roy being one of them. He's also been very fun to work with. He's somebody I've gotten to know over the last couple of years, who I luckily was invited to play in his CVS Charity Classic up in Rhode Island. Him and Billy Andre's event, they've raised close to like $15 million for charity, and Brad and I were paired together. One year it was me, him, and I think it was Brittany Lincecum. I think us three were paired together. That was the first year they went PGA Tour player, LPGA Tour player, and then a Champions Tour player. And boy, oh boy, did we get last, but we had a great time.
Some lasts are better than others. I can only imagine.
Yeah, I felt bad. We were coming off of a PGA Tour event. I show up and just wore out. I have not seen the golf course, and I played not great. I was still playing pretty decent at the time, but I didn't play very well that day. I was coming off a wedding in Augusta, and my car got totaled leaving Augusta. There was just a lot going on.
yeah, that's not conducive to good golf, but it sounds like good fun though. I mean,
it was a really cool event. Brad was just it reminded me of what Arnold Palmer probably did out on the golf course, which was conversing more with the fans than actually like caring about the golf that day. And so it was a lot of fun.
Hello to Anna Carter. Sounds like she's
it's
up there.
It's a rainy day here, so we're making it.
We got two of those going. In fact, there was a nice backstory behind the Brad Faxon interview. I was super dadding here while my wife was out pursuing educational progress in the nursing department. So, listen, it's time. Anna Carter's ready. Walker and Kadick are ready. Let's get to the Brad Faxon interview. Hope y'all enjoy it.
All right, welcome back to another episode of The Smylie Show. We got a guest I'm very familiar with, colleague of mine at NBC, Brad Faxon, 8-time PGA Tour winner. And Bradford, what's the word, man? Where are you joining from? Looks like you're at home.
Good morning, Smylie. Yes, I had a rare 2 weeks at home. I know we crave during the season. We get ready to go on a big swing with our U.S. and British Open.
Oh, gosh, I can't
wait. Back in the U.S. Senior Open, but it's nice to be home. I'm going to see Rory tomorrow before he's practicing this week as he gets ready for his chance at another major championship.
Oh, I tell you what, it's kind of nice that y'all are both in the same town. I guess you guys started working. Was it back in 2018 when you and Rory started working together? I mean, it's got to be convenient just to be able to pop over, take a look pretty quickly versus having to hop on a plane.
Yeah, that makes things a lot easier. He lives about 10 to 15 minutes away at the Bears Club. And he texted me early this morning. This guy, it seems like he gets up early all the time. Michael Bannon, his longtime coach, is here for a couple days to work. And Rory said one of the great things about being at the Bears Club now is, most of the snowbirds have gone back up north somewhere. And I always think May is too early. I have to go up to Cape Cod this coming weekend, and it's never going to get over 62 or 3. And it's going to be a little bit rainy. It's always windy. And I'm like, May and early June down here in Florida are nice. And Rory said it is empty at the Bears Club. So he's getting some really good practice in.
Well, I was going to wait to get into this Rory stuff later, but I feel like I need to just get straight away into just winning at the Masters, man, and completing the Grand Slam. And what that was like for you as a coach, because, at the U.S. Open and all really the other close calls along the way as a coach, I'm sure had to be so gratifying, watching somebody that wants it as bad as he does, be able to go and do it. For you, what was that like as a coach?
It's funny because, you and I worked together, like you said, on NBC, and I was working the Masters live from the daytime live from with Carl Banks and Aaron Oberhoser and Noda and a host of guests. But what's remarkable about that week is that live from during the day, it's, the prelude to the coverage that goes on for the Masters is the most watched show of the year, the most watched Golf Channel show of the year. And as Rory got off, to a good start and didn't finish well the first day, then had his great Friday round there to get into contention, the eyeballs on him every week are,
it's absurd.
I don't know the burden that he has. And then every year here's the first major of the year. It's the Masters, the one that he has to win. And I can't imagine. And Smylie, I feel like most of the world wanted Rory to win this. And when he got up on the 18th hole to have that 5-footer for par to win the Masters, CBS put up that graphic to win the career Grand Slam. And think about that. When do you ever see that graphic? We saw Tiger do it 20 years earlier or so. And then to see that and then misses the putt. Now he has to go back into a playoff where Justin Rose is rested and ready. He had made 10 birdies, and it looked like Rose almost holed his second shot there. And Rory hits that beautiful wedge shot from almost the same distance he did in regulation and peels it back down the hill to, outside gimme, right? That was 3 of the longest feet you've ever seen. And here goes that graphic again from the world to watch. But, it's funny because we're supposed to be not biased or prejudiced when we talk.
Sure.
And I'm in that awkward or interesting position of having been part of Rory's team for so long now. And to reach that goal, to do it at the Masters, I always thought, Rory's going to definitely win more majors before he won this Masters. I didn't know that he'd win the Masters before he won another one of those majors. I thought it would be easier to maybe take the pressure off him a little bit, sell from the Grand Slam. Hey, maybe I can win a PGA or win the British Open. But for him to do this, I just got this Golf Digest in the mail cover, Forever Rory, and a rare look at the career Grand Slam. Nobody would fault him if he said, "You know what, I'm good. I don't have to do this anymore."
Well, take me back to when y'all first started working together, and you look at him as a putter when y'all first started working together on the greens. How much has his approach changed, and how much technical stuff do you feel like he's cleaned up over the years to a point now where it's pretty easy to maintain?
Yeah, the first week we met, he sent me a text. I was still playing a little bit on the Champions Tour. Asked me if I could meet him on a Monday before he was going to drive up to Orlando that night with his wife Erica to play at Arnold Palmer Invitational. And we met in the locker room. I was nervous because, here's one of the great players in the world who'd been struggling for a few years with his putting. Part was
what was he really struggling with at that time? Was it just everything with the putter? Was it just holding him back?
I think there was, yes. He had been streaky, and that drives people crazy, especially great players. He had won tournaments certainly in 3 years, but I don't feel like he ever was scoring better than he hit it. He's always hitting it better than he scored. And that's a really frustrating way to play the game. And it's funny that the Seminole Pro member was a couple weeks earlier. And selfishly, Billy Andrade and I had approached Rory and his dad after they had played in the morning to see if they would consider playing in the CVS Charity Classic. We played together in that, Smylie.
Yeah.
And Rory was one of the bigger names that we hadn't had come to Rhode Island. We had raised tons of money for different charities. And we were trying to appeal to him to say, hey, look, this would be good for you. Only going to be good for us. And as we were standing on the, where the old swimming pool was at Seminole, Adam Scott was getting ready to hit a tee shot off the first tee. And he made this awkward looking practice stroke. And, Adam's on practice swing and Adam Scott, you're like, what's he doing? And he had gotten a lesson from then the most popular teacher in the world, George Gankis.
I remember that time.
You remember that? And
yes.
Rory made a funny comment. He said, God, can you believe Adam Scott got a lesson from Rory, from George Gankis? And, he made that kind of the club went out, kind of that Matt Wolf looking reversal. And Rory made this comment. He goes, when I hit a driver, I don't think about an effing thing. And I'm like, oh. And, I just kind of thought that was funny. We all laughed, and Adam hit a nice drive. And we walked off hoping that Rory would consider playing in our CVS Charity Classic. And that's 2 weeks later. I got a text from a 561 area code number that I didn't have in my cell phone. It was Rory on a Saturday, late afternoon. I had just finished my second round. He goes, hey, can you meet me at the Bears Club on that Monday afternoon at 4? And I'm like, gosh, I wasn't going to fly home till Monday. I wasn't going to land till 4 in Fort Lauderdale. I'm like, God, if I want to come home to see Rory, I got to do this on the red eye. So I changed my flights. It cost a few extra bucks to come back home. And I called my wife. I said, Dory, I'm going to come home on the red eye tomorrow night, not Monday. She goes, why? I go, well, Rory McIlroy wants me to watch him hit some putts. She goes, oh, so you'll come home for Rory. But, and I'm like, oh, boy. And she goes, you like him more than me? I go, I do right now. And, it was pretty funny. But anyway, I took this seriously going over there. I was equipped with, coaches all have some kind of a camera, iPad, iPhone, some kind of golf app. But I really didn't think that Rory's problems were going to be as much technical as they were maybe, mentally. How are you doing this? And, he's one of the most physically gifted players I've ever seen. And I called Michael Bannon. That we mentioned him earlier at the start of the show about being Rory's longtime swing coach and only swing coach. And I asked him, what do you guys do best? How do you guys work well together? And Michael's a thoughtful guy. He's a couple of years older than me, so he's mid 60s. And he said, Brad, we do most of our work away from the tournaments. In a perfect world, we'd work on 2 or 3 different things, feels, thoughts. And I would let Rory decide which one of those he can use and should use when he plays. But we get very little work done at tournaments. So here we were in a situation where he's getting ready to go play a tournament that week, a course that obviously fits him well. And Arnold Palmer, who was one of everybody's heroes. Mm-hmm. So we went into the locker room, and I said something to him. I said, when we were standing on the lawn at Seminole and you were watching Adam Scott make that funny practice swing, and you said you don't think about anything when you hit a driver, I said, would you be okay thinking about nothing when you were putting, but putting well and not knowing what you're doing? He goes, I would kill for that right now. And that was a good trigger for me to kind of like, okay, I think I can help this. So I filmed some stuff, showed him, what I thought looked like a little bit like standing over the ball too much, going down. When you struggle, when we struggle, you have too much of a checklist, too many thoughts. And then it gets over the way of instinct. It gets in the way of athleticism. And, we don't think of putting as something that you're necessarily athletic with, do you? You think about putting as something anybody could be able to do.
You're static, right?
But when you get static, when you get still, when you get careful, Bob Rotella, who was a big influence in my life, he always said careful kills when you're talking about golf and putting. And, we talked about that concept and about continuous motion. And I gave Rory 3 different clubs to putt with other than his putter. And that was helpful to him right then, because there's no manual on how to putt with a lob wedge or a 5-wood. And he just went back to his instinct. And it was really, that was the start of it. And letting, him control this thing more than me. And, we hit lightning in a bottle. And the funny part about the story is after about 45 or 50 minutes, he had said to me as we walked out on the green at the Bears Club, and Jack Nicklaus always made those greens pretty quick going into March and April into the Masters. So the players, there's so many players, there's 25 or 30 PGA Tour players there that are members. He would let those greens get fast and firm for that stretch run. And Rory, when we walked out there, it was so windy that afternoon. He goes, if you weren't here, there's no way I would have practiced today putting. And there was nobody out there. I think Bud Cauley came out for like 5 minutes and left and said, that's a waste of time. And, by the time, after being out there for 45 minutes, he's like, I didn't have to say much anymore because I'm like, okay, I think he's in a good spot. But two things I missed. When I walked out there on to the putting green, he had asked me two things. And this is where I think coaching, coaches have to get to learn their players, right? You have to learn idiosyncrasies, tendencies of a player. But Rory said, look, I want to go back to my 34-inch putter. He had been using a 33-inch putter. And I said, how long have you been using that shorter putter? He goes, well, I've been using this for a couple of years now, but I won the 4 previous majors with this putter, and it's 34 inches. And I'm like, that's okay with me. And
wait, did he ask if it was okay if he can use that?
Yeah. He goes, are you okay if I go back
like,
to 34? I said, yeah, of course. And he said, yeah, I feel like I'm more comfortable with 34 inches. And, I'm not bent over as much. And then he says, do you mind if I'm a little bit open? And I'm like, well, there's a lot of great putters that I played with that were open. And Jack Nicklaus would be the first one.
David Toms.
Ben Crenshaw, David Toms. Tom Watson always said to me he felt better when he was a little bit open. I played feeling I'm a little bit open. So I'm like, what am I going to say? Doubt what a player likes to feel. And I said to him, too, because, he had a very well-known putting coach that probably was telling him exactly what he needed to do technically with his stroke. And I knew he was going to be there at Bay Hill the next day. And I said to Rory, I said, nothing we talk about will ever, I'll never talk about this stuff until you talk about it. And, if you say something, then I'll say something. But don't worry about me telling anybody because I know what it's like because I cheated on a lot of my coaches and I had a lot of them. But I think that let him sigh, breathe a little sigh of relief. And, we before we finished, I said, all right, let's have a putting contest. And, I think a putting contest, this is really the essence of putting, right? We all did that growing up. You did that in college.
Did you wear them out?
Well,
because you're the coach. Like, you don't want
to. That game you play back and forth, right? Where we stand on one hole, you putt at the same time, and the balls cross. And this particular day, the closest 2 holes to each other on the big putting green, they were like 30 feet apart. It was windy. The greens were fast. It was taking a while to make aces, but I got up to a 4-2 lead. We're playing to 5. And I mouthed off and Bart asked, I said, hey, if I beat you in this putting contest and you go up and you win Bay Hill, you got to tell everybody Brad Faxon beat you in a putting contest. And he laughed. And then he made 3 of the next 5 to beat me.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, oh, man. I woke him up and he said, you know what? When I go up and win Bay Hill this week, I'm going to tell everybody I beat you in a putting contest. And, it was kind of cool because I'm kind of curious, how often had somebody said anything to him about winning? And he went that week to Bay Hill, and early in the week, I think he played with Justin Rose. And he hit it out of bounds on Friday on 18. And it was the first time, I think, in a long time he scored better than he hit it because he putted very well. And he went on to win by 4 and had a great Sunday round. And, it was lightning in a bottle. But we've been together now for 7+ years. I think he doesn't need me to stand there and watch him hit putts every single day. That's for sure. At the Masters this year, we had spent a little bit of time the week before at home. Like Michael Bannon said, and Rory doesn't need me to stand behind him and watch every single putt. He doesn't need me to tell him how to warm up. But at the same time, I think he's gotten to the point where he knows what his 2, 3, or 4 tendencies might be and how to fix them.
It seems like when he was, I guess, I can't remember what the years were, but I just always remember the putter being kind of chased down the line. Like the putter head, like almost looked like it was going past his head, and then it looked like it was struggling for him to really release the putter head, or covering the golf ball, if you will. Was that something that you noticed, that he had a bit of a push tendency to, maybe where he's just chasing it down the line, and now it swings beautifully on an arc?
Yeah. So if you think about it, and if I talked to his father, who's a member at Seminole and friends with Michael Bannon. When he was taught to play, he had hands forward. He had that stroke similar to Phil Mickelson, a blocking style sort of
That's right.
release. And that's something that he had embedded in him from early on. And
It's good.
he
I'm sure it
used
was good on slow greens though, growing up
it,
in Ireland. Gets the
probably
ball
growing
going.
up on those slower greens. He had an offset blade style putter, which maybe would encourage that a little bit. And now that he's been using this spider mallet for 5 years, 6 years now, that maybe encourages a little bit more release. The simplest drill, and I would encourage anybody that's listening to do this, is right hand only practice putting. And that helps.
Did it for years.
And he was pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
And that's a good feeling for anyone, and for Rory to feel like at impact, the shaft's back to vertical. You're using the true loft to the putter, and then the putter head passes the hands. It's the opposite a little bit, and he's really like that putting drill. You can feel casual about it, which is kind of the mood you're trying to have when you putt. And I honestly don't think he can do enough of that, because it's got that nice release where the vertical release of the putter where the head passes the grip, and then the horizontal release where the toe passes the heel, all in one simple little drill. And you're trying to let players do something that allows the putter to work the right way without having to think about how it works the right way. And I think that's been a good combination for him.
Well, you mentioned it earlier, and talking a little bit about swing instructors and cheating on your coaches. Well, you and I both are kind of cut from the same cloth, as in we're both naturally gifted on the greens. It comes easy to us. Like when we get on a green, there's just intrinsically things that we can't explain of how we know it, but we just do. The golf club, swinging a golf club. I was not nearly quite as naturally gifted and talented with specific things that make somebody an elite ball striker. I've had to really learn information as I've gone. I've always been a good wedge player, but the longer stuff I've always struggled with a little bit when it comes just with some technique stuff. For you, Brad, was it difficult when you were playing and having to go bounce around to swing instructors with a bunch of information and staying consistent to it? Because you just talked about how simple you coach and how simple the putting is for you, but the full swing, quite the opposite. And it led you to a lot of success, but also, do you wish you would have just stuck with one person along the way?
Yeah. Smylie, I have a list. It's a torn sheet here of all the different people I've paid to have lessons from. And it gets close to 100.
Oh my God. You got me beat, man.
Chronologically, and I'm trying to do it from the coaching trees, who worked for Harmon, who worked for Ledbetter, who worked for McLean. And there's a lot of them. But when I did play my best, to answer your question, I stuck with the same guy for a lengthy period of time, whether it was Jim McLean, David Ledbetter. I had journeys with them. And then some more obscure coaches that helped me out, that I stayed with for a while. But to me, it's some of the stuff that you need to do is hard to explain. I have a really good friend named Adam Oates. Adam Oates was one of the greatest hockey players that ever lived, one of the all-time assist leaders. I think he coaches 75 players in the NHL now on body awareness, puck and stick handling drills. And when you talk about other sports, it's hard to explain sometimes. Like if you're playing hockey and you have to pass the puck to one of your teammates that's skating fast down the other side of the ice, and you have to decide how to release it, at what height is it going to stay along ice? Is it going to be over a defender's stick? How do you teach that? And I would call that touch. And now I hear so many people, you got to get better at lag putting and distance control. And, we did all that stuff without having a name for it. You just got good at it by practicing a lot. And some of it you can't explain. And sometimes experimenting around with a different putter or trying to have different feels can help you out without going down a path that I went down with the full swing. And I think for Rory, one of the things that he's so good at, first of all, he's talented, right? I mean, he's one of these guys with speed. How can you say this guy who's, a few years ago, he was 5'8" or 9", weighed 165 pounds. Now he's close to 180. He's as strong as there is. He's hitting it as hard as he has ever in his career. How do you teach that? And there's certain things that you have to spend time doing it. And I know for Rory right now, he's not going home at night worrying about his putting stroke. And that's,
for sure.
If that's my job, that's a good thing. His statistics have been better the last several years. I think going into last week at the PGA, he was 10th or 11th in putting statistics. And guys like Scottie and Rory, if they crack the top 50 in putting, they're going to be impossible to beat, never mind the top 10. And it's just great to see him feel so much better about that part of his game.
Man, you and I were you at Working Hero this past year? I'm trying to remember if you were.
I haven't been there. I will be there this year. I can't wait to do that.
It's a fun event, but I remember I was in the booth this past year, and on Thursday, all of a sudden we see Scottie pop up with the claw grip or the saw grip, and we're just like, what in the world? What is this guy doing? He just won 7 times this last year, won an Olympic gold medal. And next thing you know, he's got this whole new grip. And like you said, I mean, Scottie's all the way up in the top 15 in putting this year. And the question I want to ask you about this is for someone like Scottie, who was as poor with the putter. I mean, he was, what was he, outside the top 150, outside the top 170 in putting only a couple years ago. And we constantly talked about it leading into shows, the end of shows. Like, if Scottie can just putt average, he's going to win a lot of golf tournaments. And for someone like him to make technical changes like he did and see this much improvement, for you as a coach, are you someone to suggest, hey, if you were able to get into this saw position, it would clean up the technical part of your stroke? Or would you let somebody kind of lead you to that point?
Boy, I don't know how to do that. And I say it frankly. When a guy decides that something's happening, and it's usually if you're conventionally gripped and right-handed, if your right hand starts doing something, getting a little too involved, I guess is the right way to say it, then you experiment. Do you go to left hand low? Do you go to saw or claw variations? Do you go to the broomstick? I know I spent a little time, about a year maybe, with Lucas Glover a few years ago, and it was one of the several people that was helping him to, hey, let's go. We got to try something that can't get worse, right? When you go to the alternative methods. And I don't know with Scottie if this was Phil Kenyon, who's been very helpful to him, obviously, or if it was Randy Smith and Scottie that say, let's try this because it'll get that right hand. I don't know if it's
it was. I think it was Phil, because he was saying that the tendency, which I found really interesting in his golf swing, is that typically his right arm would get a little on the high side, and then that would cause some issues in his ball striking. So right side would get a little high. And so same with the putting, is that they noticed that his right side, his right hand would get a little bit too on top of the putter, and that it was causing inconsistencies in the stroke, maybe a little bit of a loop. And it's funny too, how tendencies in somebody's ball striking and what they do, how it's all the time it translates into what they do wrong in their putting stroke.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how many people I teach, like amateur golfers, and I'll look at their setup, and I teach with Jason Bale at Jupiter Hills, who just got PGA of America's Teacher of the Year, Instructor of the Year. And we have this little saying: it's hard to make a golfer worse by making their setup better. And if I see something in a player with their setup and I say, hey, I think you could use maybe a little bit more right side bend, something. I'm making it up now, but they'll go, oh my gosh, that's what Jason told me. That's what I do in my full swing. Those tendencies tend to be the same. And if Scheffler gets a little high with his right side at address, and I just think, we're talking about instructors, and you have to get to know your player and their player's tendency. How about caddies and their players? Like Ted Scott gets asked as they make the turn in the Sunday of the PGA Championship, I'm hitting these drives, are going too far left. What do you think? And Ted knows his tendencies, and he wants to keep something simple, but he doesn't want to make up any BS. He says, I think you're aiming too far left. Aim more to the right. And what a simple solution. And he pipes that drive down the 10th hole. And basically, that was the turning point for Scheffler to win the PGA.
It sure was. And have you been playing much golf, Brad? Because I remember when we were in Mexico at the beginning of our NBC swing. I mean, you're off to go and get these. What was the PRP injections? Is that what they're called? What was it? Where they spin the blood.
Yeah,
I know you had a bad accident.
I got a bad right knee. Then I had broken my left shoulder, falling off a bicycle, and then I did some stem cells down there at
stem cells. That's what it was
at Renew, that beautiful place down there, where it's not legal in the United States to do some of the stem cell therapy with some of the FDA approval stuff, but it's been helpful. My right knee and left shoulder are bad. I played yesterday with my wife, who just walked in, Dory, in the mixed scramble event.
Ooh,
finished
win?
third, so another top third finish. But I got asked. I had dinner last night with Ian Baker Finch and some of his buddies, and they want me to come out there and play a little bit later this morning. And there's a big storm going on right now, so it might get delayed. But I still love to play. I stink, but I can go out there and always try and find something.
Would you start back playing again? Because I remember you were in a sling like late February.
Yeah, I had I fell off the bike in October, kind of a mountain bike, and crashed and hurt everything. But my arm broke the radius bone right by the elbow, and I was lucky because I didn't need surgery or anything. It just got weak and sore.
Ugh,
and my shoulder's a little bit messed
terrible
up.
Sleeping.
Yeah. And I at some point probably going to need some work on the shoulder, but
Uh-huh.
I can still swing close to pain-free. And, when you have your buddies, it's hard to kind of say no to them. Baker Finch, he's crazy because, he's our counterpart on CBS. He's been doing it for 26 years, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays every day when he's home. I'm like,
Oh gosh, I'm so sore. I've played 2 of the last 3 days. I'm dying right now. I'm not built for it anymore.
Then you're young.
I know I am.
Hope you all are enjoying Smylie's conversation with Brad Faxon. Some great stuff about Rory there, just the process of improving his putting. And this interview is not necessarily going to shift gears, but progress a little bit because Brad is a member, and he has been a member, I guess, since the early 2000s at unanimously the #1 golf course in America, Pine Valley. And that is a special, special place. It is a huge piece of property. There's all sorts of fun things to do there. And we have some fun stories to get into there, but we're going to do that with the help of our friends at Shipsticks. Because what better way to ensure that you can have all the fun that you like to have at Pine Valley than making sure your clubs arrive there and you're not playing a set of rentals. Although I'd say probably the rentals at Pine Valley probably better than a lot of other places, I'd say. I can make that assumption safely. Shipsticks gets you from your front door to 4 easier than ever. They'll pick up your golf clubs from your home or office and deliver them on time, guaranteed to your golf destination anywhere in and outside the United States. No more airport headaches, no more lugging heavy bags, just easy, stress-free travel for golfers like you. Smylie, do you want to tease any Pine Valley stories before I wrap this thing up and get them back to the interview?
Well, he probably could have told Pine Valley stories talking about Brad Faxon for multiple episodes. It's just such a unique place. It's more than just golf. The people that you see, just kind of how it's laid out. You end up seeing everybody that's on property, and it's just such a cool experience.
And the red snapper bisque.
That's right.
Can't forget about that. Lots of good things going on at Pine Valley. And by the way, one of the better stats I think I've ever heard in the history of the game of golf. In connection to Pine Valley.
Stay tuned.
It might be the best stat. Like, it might be more impressive than anything we've seen in terms of Tiger
golf.
Woods ball striking and Scottie Scheffler. It is a phenomenal stat. So ship sticks. Yeah. And I, I'm not sure this stat probably in connection with making sure that this person had the right set of clubs, thanks to ship sticks, probably helped them achieve this statistic. The supporting benefits include white glove service, complimentary insurance, real-time tracking, door-to-door service, international shipping, and it's for any occasion. It's perfect for buddies trips, like the one that Smylie recently went to Pine Valley, business trips, even family vacations where managing kids, strollers, and extra luggage can ruin your vacation before it's even begun. You can enjoy 20% off your next shipment by using the promo code SMILIE. That's SMYLIE. And of course, as always, we will link we'll put a little link in the description on our podcast and YouTube here, so you can use that if you want to take your club somewhere you're excited to go play. Let's get right back to Brad Faxon.
Well, that means have you made any trips up to Pine Valley this year?
I've made 2, as a matter of fact. And, going up there, having been a member, I've been a member since 2005, so 20 years now. It's always the greatest trip to take, to bring people to, especially people that have never been, because it always over delivers. And like you would be, you still want to prove yourself. You want to shoot a good score. And I always try and tell my guests, look, enjoy the walk. Don't worry about if you hit a ball out of play, because you're probably not going to find it. And I'm guilty of that. I want to shoot the lowest score.
Well, sure you do. What's your favorite part about Pine Valley?
I think every hole, you could literally stand on every tee box and say, this is my favorite hole at Pine Valley, and nobody would make fun of you. I think when you invite someone that's never been there and they see it for the first time, the joy they have. And I always tell the people, as good as the experience of the golf course there is, when you drive through the little gate to come into Pine Valley, its own borough, and you see it for the first time live, you can't imagine it. And I've been lucky enough. I think Chris Stutz, who's one of my buddies and a member at Pine Valley. He lives down the street here at Old Palm, and he's got me more active there. And I've played a lot of member golf there. I don't know that it's as fun off the course as it is on the course there.
Yes, it's a very good time when you show up for dinner that evening with all the green jackets and everybody's got their own table, talking about how they played that day. And of course, it's a really good hang outside of the dinner, just to the room next to that, just sitting with a lot of people that you end up meeting and you keep in touch with. It's a very always somebody fun you run into.
Everybody has a story, whether it's a green jacketed guy or not. And one of my friends that came with us a few weeks ago shot 74. He's about a 2 or 3 handicap, and to shoot 74,
that's pretty strong.
Pretty strong. And the smile hasn't left his face. But you can go to Pine Valley and play the short course there. They have a 10-hole short course. A lot of holes are replicas of the.
I loved it too.
Second course, so you're on a golf cart, you can play some music, you can smoke a cigar, and then the practice range there is as good a range as you can find, isn't it? 2-sided.
Well, our host when I went was Eli Manning, and Eli took all of us out to go hit some golf balls, and it took us about 15 minutes to find the range because Eli couldn't remember where the range was.
I might use that. Yes.
So next time you see him, just say, "Hey, can you give me a ride to the range?" Or just tell me where it's at.
Well, and if you haven't been there a lot, and he's a newer member, finding your way in the dark on a golf cart to the cottages.
It was light out. It was. That's why I give him props.
That's worse than.
He was leading us to the abyss, but we had a great time, and he was a fantastic host. And Ricky Fowler made a hole-in-one while we were there, so that was a lot of fun.
Get out. What hole did he make a hole-in-one?
Ricky made an ace on the 3rd hole. And as the story goes, I was playing with JT, Ricky, and Justin's buddy, Willie Sellers, who I played junior golf with, played at Alabama. And Justin gets onto the tee at 3, and it was that front left pin, about maybe 175, 180. to
Yep.
that front left hole location. It's definitely a funnel pin. You can make a hole in one to that
Yeah,
pin, but it's a
keeps to the
very,
right.
very tight. You got to hit your number to be able to do it. So Justin gets up there and he got off to a really hot start. He was flagging everything, and he gets there and he said, "Somebody needs to film this. I'm about to make a hole in one." And he hits this beautiful high towering 7-iron and plugs it into the front bunker. I was like, "Good shot, man." And so we were just giving him crap about it. And I guess one of the other caddies just like kept the phone open as Ricky went, and he hits this beautiful high, like the right shot shape. It starts like right center of the green, moves towards the middle as it then lands right on top of that like slope, right at the crest there, and then it rolls 20 feet right into the hole, and we just went nuts.
You could all see it go into that pin too.
We all could, and then Eli, Colt Nose were in the group in front of us, and they had just teed off at 4, walking up, and they heard the yells. So then all of a sudden, we're all on the green celebrating a hole in one, and there's also a deer right of the green that I hit right after Ricky hit his 7. Hit 7. I was like, how am I going to follow this up? Okay, let's just miss it to the right of the bunker.
That's outstanding. One of the great golf stats in history. Ryder Cup, Walker Cup captain and player Buddy Marucci is a member there. And Buddy Marucci has made an eagle on every single hole at Pine Valley except for the 14th hole. He's eagled 17 holes, and he made a birdie on the par 3 14th, but he's never made a 1 on that hole. But how about that for a career?
That's the most bizarre stat I've ever heard.
No, it's unbelievable. Every single hole, which means a lot. Means something. He played a lot at Pine Valley, right? And then he hit good irons.
But that's absurd. I don't think I've ever heard a stat like that.
What are they? That's called the career ringer, right? Your ringer. What's your best score on each hole? And he's 2 under on every hole except for the 14th.
I can't say that at my home course here in town that I've made a lot of eagles out there, but considering at Pine Valley, the shots that you have to hit, that's absurd. Oh man. Well, next time I see Buddy, I might have to ask him about that.
You got to ask him about it.
Yeah.
He must see if he just played every time he plays 14.
Yeah, I didn't know if he just took a shag bag to every single hole to where eventually he just made eagles. But well, as we wrap this interview, Brad, I have to talk a little bit about NBC and the U.S. Open and the Ryder Cup coming up our schedule. How pumped are you? I mean, I tell everybody, I think the events that we have at NBC, you need to throw in the players with that, and of course the playoffs. We get to call some pretty fun events.
There's no doubt about it. And this year, with the domination with Rory and Scottie, the 2 best players in the world, continuing, it would be unbelievable to see those 2 guys play.
Throwing Bryson, man.
They play
the majors.
totally different ways. I played in the 1983 U.S. Open at Oakmont as an amateur. It was my last. I just graduated from Furman. I played on the Walker Cup. I qualified, and I've never seen anything as more difficult than Oakmont. And I think Oakmont likes to brag that they slow the greens down for the U.S. Open. I think they say all we need is 2 weeks to prepare. We don't need to grow any rough because it's always tough. This year, the rough is already a foot high.
It looks like it.
And if you ask anybody, what's the hardest course you played? And I don't mean in miserable conditions where it's cold or windy, but just on a standard day. I always say the 3 hardest courses in America start with Oakmont, where we're going to see the Open, Oakland Hills, and Oak Hill. They're just so hard. But Oakmont is above and beyond the hardest course I've ever played. I have yet to be on site to see that renovated course by Gil Hance and what he's done. But everybody tells me how hard it is. We're going to see 300-yard par 3s. I can't imagine how long it's going to take to play some of these rounds there. And I've heard the fairway bunkers, the way they're designed, when your ball gets in there, it kind of gets towards the bottom and towards the lips. So it's really hard to advance the ball. I think that's one thing the founder, Harold Founds, I think that's how you say his last name, Howard or Harold, didn't want you to be able to reach the green. So part of me wants this to be, where the players are bloody when they finish, where, I don't want to see any rain.
So you want an over par
Yeah, I don't want to see a final round Johnny Miller 63. I know Johnny doesn't want to see that either, but I'd like to see this where, man, what would it be like if 4 or 5 over par wins this tournament, and where you walk off a par 5 making a 5 and you said, I just did pretty well.
And do you think another Irishman can win at Portrush this year?
I really do. I really do. I've heard a rumor that first hole.
When he hit out of bounds on, right?
Well, Rory hit a 2-iron or 1-iron off the tee there and pull hooked it into the out of bounds. Now that was a kind of an in-course out of bounds that they had set up for gallery control and some sponsor suites. And I don't think that is going to be out of bounds this year. And
TIO now?
I think there's a new tee too. I think it's back farther. So that hole is not going to be just a layup necessarily, depending on the wind conditions. But all my friends that have gone over there to play, they always try and argue what's a better course, County Down or Portrush. And to have Shane win there in 14, Shane Lowry said the last time I saw him at the PGA at Quail, he said, Rory's taking the pressure off me going back there. So yeah, imagine that if one of those two guys comes back and is in contention the last day.
Man, I just remember Rory's walk up on Friday at Portrush when he had, he was way outside the cut line, and then has such a magical Friday to almost make the cut, and just what the spectators, the amount of noise and support they were giving him on a Friday, just can you imagine what that would be like on a Sunday? So that's going to be fun to watch. And then, of course, we'll end here with the Ryder Cup, Brad. I think the European team, if you would have told me 2 or 3 years ago that their lineup was going to have depth, young talent, and the harder lineup to choose, I would have said you are lying, because I think this United States team is very top heavy. There's going to be unproven depth that are most likely might make this team. So what are your impressions when you look at the Ryder Cup heading up?
I couldn't agree more. I was just looking at the list 2 days ago, thinking, if I'm the captain of either team, who's going to be on my team? Who am I going to pick? How does the LIV golfers, how do they be part of the team? You think about, John Rahm, Tyrrell Hatton, adding to the European team, the firepower that they have. And I think they'll be the deeper of the teams, it looks like. And you look at some of these young American players like Ben Griffin. I mean, will he be a first-time Ryder Cupper at Bethpage? And I've always thought, this Keegan Bradley story is remarkable. 38 years old, a captain, youngest captain since Arnold back in 1963. And, he got that call from Seth Waugh last year to be the captain, and it surprised him. And I've always thought, if Keegan at 38 qualifies, he says, look, I'm only going to play if I finish in the top 6. Well, if he made it into the top 12, he would be picked by any other captain, certainly.
100%.
And if Seth had called him not to tell him, hey, you're going to be the Ryder Cup captain, if he said, look, would you rather be captain or rather play at Bethpage in 25? He'd say play all day, wouldn't he? So I think Keegan needs to be like, hey, I could be a big part of this team. And, Keegan's a guy that he's versatile, right? He can play either format because he's such a good hitter of the ball. And he can play with any other player. I mean, there's certain times when you make a pick where that particular player is only good in one format, or only is good with one or two other players. I think Captain Bradley would be a great player. And you could easily say to any of those assistant captains, you be the captain, let me play. And the PGA of America would surely give them that spot.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see who rounds out the teams for both Luke Donald and Keegan Bradley. And, of course, you and I will both be there to be on the call. Can't wait for you to ask me how the lie is, because I'll tell you how the lie is, and I'll tell you what the word is down on the ground. So, Brad, it's been fun, man. We've been talking about doing this for a while.
I'm glad we got to do this finally. I can't wait to get up there in Pittsburgh with you. And when we walk the course, I think both you and I will be saying, aren't you glad you're walking?
Oh, my gosh. I would need a hole in my pocket to play Oakmont.
That's probably happened there before.
It definitely has. It definitely has. Well, Brad, I appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you up in Oakmont. See you, buddy.
I thought, Smylie, thanks so much.
Well, there it is. Another fun conversation with one of the guys who has some of the best insight on the game of golf around, with Brad Faxon. I again, as a fly on the wall, was thrilled with all that. But I'll say this: if I wasn't holding my 7-month-old daughter, I thought about sending her down to grab a putter with some of the stuff that Brad was talking about, doing right hand only drills, the
Sure.
release in the toe. But unfortunately, I had to hold my daughter. So I was there anything for you that really stood out in terms of, I want to go work on this, or this was really interesting?
Well, I think with Brad, him and I talk all the time about certain things. There was nothing that really caught me a ton off guard. But one of the favorite things I think that any person can do that's lacking creativity is taking multiple clubs out on the putting green.
Yeah, that was
It's something that I really haven't done, but would be something that I would be willing to try if I was kind of losing touch around the greens. Like, just grab a 5-wood, grab 3 random clubs in your bag, and then start to try to get your feel back. So that would be something that would be a takeaway from me to practically be able to go and do.
I thought that was super interesting, of just trying to kind of get away from robotic, as we often can fall into that as putters, of what's the alignment of my head and shoulders and everything like that. Am I open or closed? And Brad's handing Rory a 5-wood and a lob wedge, and just trying to kind of bring some of that athleticism back in. I thought that was super interesting.
It's funny too. What takeaways would be, I'm so used to having conversations with Brad where I'm not looking at his face. I'm out on the ground, and you got to have a lot of, just you got to know a person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're working on the ground, you have to know somebody's cadences and just how they speak, and you need to spend a lot of time with them just so you know what conversations you can get into when there is some dead air. So with Brad, he's easy, right? Like if we're on the putting green, and I have just a general thought about, hey, do you think the greens being this speed favors this type of player right now? Or do you think this amount of wind is affecting putts inside of 10 feet? And anything, anything in the game of golf is safe to ask, but specifically around the putting, he always just adds such great value to our coverage. So does a great job of NBC, and it's been fun to work with.
Well, hope you all enjoyed that conversation, and have some stuff. Look, we gave you some Jason Duffner short game tips last week. We got some putting tips from Brad Faxon this week. I don't know who we're gonna have on next to just get you guys dialed in. The summer's ramping up. I got the member this week at Hope Valley. I mean, I got to get dialed, man. This is top tier information. So selfishly, I'm loving it. Let's go next to some competition that is slightly more important than the Hope Valley member. The Division I Men's Golf Championships. We have an individual winner, Michael Sasso, who is a really interesting study. He's a guy who's from around here, the Triangle in North Carolina, started at NC State and then transferred to Ole Miss, has a super interesting golf swing. It almost reminds me of like Joaquin Neiman, the way he sort of contorts his body and gets into these really flexible positions that I'll never dream of getting in ever again.
Well,
but
he works with Chase Duncan.
Own your golf game. Yeah.
And I think that he teaches like a certain style, or at least every player that I see posted has this unique way in which they get the club to the top, and then it's like shallow immediately out of the top and then just rotate. And Michael Sasso, Akshay Bhatia are two players that, Caleb Surratt, all three of those guys, elite ball strikers, hit fades primarily. And I've seen Sasso on TikTok for years. This is a guy that wears the short shorts, like thunder
He's got no more than
thighs.
4 inches of inseam on those things, and it might be getting smaller. It might be down to 3 inches.
The kid's always been so pure, like watching his golf swing, and so not surprising at all to see that he's had success. I've seen him in the top 20 on the PGA Tour U pretty much all year, and now winning the NCAAs. I'm curious to see what that jump for him gets him all the way up to, because the official world golf ranking or
the WAGR, right? Yeah,
I'm curious to see what he is in the WAGR, because I think he was in somewhere around the top 20 heading into the week. So let me just generally.
I wonder if it updates, like how
it'll be after the week. Imagine he's 11th.
11th, yeah,
and that's without That's without the win. So he's a player that he won at Old Waverly this year, won the second at Tallahassee. Great, really good player. Ole Miss has had an incredible year. It's been a program that's never gotten to the point where they are now. To where they're in the fall they were the best team. The fall I think they won it multiple times. A solid lineup. They got a great coach there in Chris Malloy. And so we'll see what they do in match play.
Yeah, if you've not seen Michael Sasso hit a golf ball, like just go find him on TikTok or Instagram. The guy absolutely
not hard to find.
Punishes it. Yeah, it is a very unique swing. But so yeah, Michael Sasso, your individual champion, and his Ole Miss Rebels, they got in as the final team. They're the 8th seed in this match play bracket. Let me run through this bracket with you. Arizona State.
So did Florida State with Luke Clanton, were they close to making it in? That's the one thing this thing was missing.
Shot, yeah. Or I'm sorry. Well, I guess it was one shot. Ole Miss as a team finished at 11 over in that 8th and final spot. Florida State at 12 over in that 9th spot. Misses match play. But it's tough. I mean, from a homer perspective, I was bummed that
TV perspective.
UNC
Luke, man.
Well, for sure. I mean, there are numerous parts of this. I was hoping Carolina was going to advance and they were going to be in the mix. David Ford's going to be in the mix. That's a very homer take. I'm sure you feel the same about LSU. But from a national interest perspective, it's really tough to not have Luke Clanton involved because that would have been a fun sort of flourished his amateur career before he, of course, heads on the PGA Tour with the card he earned via the PGA Tour U Accelerated program. And also on that note, I believe Jackson Koivun finished tied for 4th on the leaderboard. He did, tied for 4th at 6 under. So that is the last point he needs to earn his 20 via the PGA Tour U Accelerated program. So he also has the option to turn pro now, following the conclusion of this team match play portion where his Auburn Tigers are the 2nd seed. So here are the matchups you have right now. And we're recording this on a Tuesday. You're listening to this on a Wednesday. These matches are happening as we speak, or have already completed as we speak, and we're on to the next round. But the quarter matchups were Arizona State, the 1st seed, against Ole Miss, the 8th seed. Oklahoma State, the 4th seed, against Oklahoma, the 5th seed. There's an interesting one right out of the gate, a little rivalry match. On the other side, you've got Florida, the 3rd seed, playing Texas, the 6th seed, and Auburn, the 2nd seed, playing Virginia, the 7th seed. So, Smylie, you wanted to do a little bracket challenge here, huh?
March Madness.
A little March Madness in May. A little May Madness.
Yeah, some of these matches have just gotten started. Not enough to where we know who's going to be the winners of these things yet. But I'm going to run through who I think is going to win each round. I'll let you do the same. I'm going to start with Arizona State. I think they're going to take down Ole Miss, although I know Michael Sasso, an individual champion, but still Arizona State's just so strong with Ballester, Preston Summerhays, and then there's another player on their team, I believe from like Thailand, I think, that's been like really solid.
Well, okay, you might be referring to someone different. I'm not even going to pronounce it.
It's like Leo Pacadi, I think is his last name. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it, but he's been a really solid player for them.
You also have Connor Williams as well. He's been playing great.
Yes, so Arizona State, I like them to advance. And then the Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, it's funny. I look at their teams and just their players, and I just don't recognize as many names as I thought I would on their team. I've covered plenty of USAMs, and I keep up with these programs, and just not as many names as I anticipated that I thought I would know. So with that being said, I'm going to probably lean. Oh gosh, I kind of want to go Oklahoma State here, but Oklahoma. Well, give me Oklahoma. I'm gonna go with SEC.
All right, okay, there you go.
So ASU playing Oklahoma, and then on the other side, Florida against Texas. I'm gonna go Texas here. I think they just have, Tommy Morrison's just such a strong player. Luke Plotter, infamously the guy that they yelled at Rory on that tee, but an incredible player. And there's one other really good guy, Christian Moss.
Yes.
He's a very good player, I think from South Africa. I like them to advance. And then Auburn, Virginia. Even if you want to take Virginia, who I think they have like 3 really good players too. Ben James kind of leads the charge there. Paul Chang kind of was a player that used to be on the club team, and now he's a stalwart.
He was their lowest scorer, and the portion of this that got him into
stripes it, man. Stripes it. Still got to take Auburn there. So Auburn and Texas on the other side. I'm gonna have Arizona State going and beating Oklahoma, and then I'm gonna have Auburn facing Arizona State. These would be the 1 and the 2 seeds. So a lot of chalk here in the national championship, and I'm gonna have Arizona State, the 1 seed, winning it all. Hard to win back to back.
You're gonna pick against your wife, your daughter, Abby.
Can't have the win everything in the house here, Charlie.
That's fair. That's fair. I just heard Anna Carter earlier, and I'm not sure we're gonna get another reaction right now to the fact that you're going against her beloved Abby, but that's fair. Okay, so you have chalk. You got Arizona State winning it all. I like to zag. So I think I'm going to zag here. Plus, it'll make for a great clip if I somehow nail a bunch of upsets. Here we go.
She's gonna join us.
Oh, great!
She's gonna come join for your picks.
Hey, Anna Carter. Your dad just picked against Abby. You should be very upset with him. So my picks. I'll keep them nice and short. I'm gonna roll with Ole Miss. Let's see a big 8-1 upset. It's not a 16-1 like March Madness, but as I've mentioned, been a follower of Sasso's for a while. So we're gonna roll with Ole Miss. Just shocking upset over Arizona State, and then let's go with I'll go with Oklahoma as well. That's also a homer pick too. Big fan of Quade Cummins, so we're gonna go with the Sooners there. So we got Ole Miss and Oklahoma on one side, and then the other side, I'm gonna take Florida. I'm gonna be a Rory guy here, and I'm gonna go with Florida instead of Texas. And then I'm gonna go with UVA because if UVA wins, that makes North Carolina's loss to them in the ACC championships look better. Oh, wow. Look, you look very official, Anna Carter, with the golf hat on. The Golf Channel hat. Do you have a report for us?
The report is that Frozen is going to be on
Frozen. Okay. We just watched Ferdinand the Bull.
All right, so help me out. So where are we at now in this bracket?
So I've got my semifinals are Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and Florida, Virginia.
Oh,
and
wow.
Then
you went total oppo, man.
I'm just trying to go a little crazy here. So, and I'm going to say Ole Miss keeps the Cinderella run going, and they make it to the final. And then I'm going to send Virginia through to represent the ACC, and I'm going to have a Virginia Ole Miss final, and then I'm going to have Virginia winning it all. I'm going to keep it in the ACC, wahoo wah, things of that nature. So there you go. So you got Arizona State, I've got Virginia. We'll see how dumb I sound when this episode's out on Wednesday and none of the teams I picked make it to the semifinals. But that's the fun of doing this while it's happening.
There you go. All right. Well, we shall see. And also, congrats to Jackson Koivun.
Yes. Congrats to Jackson Koivun for getting his card via the accelerated program.
And I read that some report came out that said that he was going to defer to 2026, taking up status.
It would be interesting. I mean, I think that was the timeline. If he did not finish top 10 this week, that would have been his timeline, given the point he would have gotten for the Arnold Palmer Cup. But now he has the option to go earlier because he's earned that point this week. So we'll see. We'll see what he decides to do. That is Smylie is fully on dad mode now. So this is the end of the episode. We appreciate you all listening. Hope you enjoyed Brad Faxon. Send us your replies in the tweets. What your bracket looks like on the NCAA, the men's championships. And we'll talk to you back here very soon.
You wave bye, Anna Carter? Say bye-bye. You say bye-bye?
I listen to this podcast. It's really cool. And
all of our level fans and subscribers, but make sure you like and subscribe.
It's cool to see what you guys are doing. I know golf fans appreciate it, but we do too. So please keep it up.
For all the good people of YouTube, like and subscribe.
You guys have some good takes, so I'm happy to come on and shoot the